There's a whole number of names that we have for muscles because, of course, muscles come in different shapes, sizes, etc. Now, when we look at them, we can look at how do they attach onto their tendon, and more specifically, how do the fascicles attach? And let's start with a muscle that most people are familiar with, and that is the biceps brachii. Of course, biceps means two head, brachii refers to the arm, and this is the one that most people are familiar with here. It is a flexor type muscle. Now, when we start to look at basically the fascicles, we're looking to see how they interact with the tendons that are associated with the muscle. Now let's start with the parallel fusiform style. Now, here when we see this, we see that the muscle certainly has a wider appearance and it comes in. Fusiform is this shape where it's narrow at one end, wide in the middle, narrow at the other end, and that is the term fusiform. And often we hear the term belly. Belly is the widest part of a muscle. Now in this one, we're going to call it a parallel fusiform because of its shape, and also when we look at the fascicles will be running through the muscle, attaching onto the two tendons at each end. Now, of course, typically one tendon is the origin. Origin is the area where the muscle attaches, which is not the area that's going to be moving, and insertion attaches onto the end where I will have movement occurring. So that's the first one. It's a parallel fusiform type, and an example of that is the biceps. Let's move down to bipennate. Bipennate, of course, bi tells us two, and pennate is describing this. You can see that the fascicles come in at an angle, and when we're looking at it, there is a thin strip of connective tissue that runs up through here that it's attaching to. So that is a classic bipennate. And a good example of this is the rectus femoris. And of course, the rectus femoris is one of the large muscles in the anterior aspect of the thigh. Let's move over and have a look at another one. And here is a parallel, and this is non-fusiform. Because remember, fusiform meant that it was thin at one end, thin at the other, and the middle is the belly. Here it's parallel but non-fusiform because the fascicles are running parallel to each other. But you notice that it is sort of the same length all the way around from top to bottom. There is no sort of belly of the muscle. And this example would be the sartorius. And the sartorius is this fabulous muscle that runs from lateral to medial. There is the sartorius. Now let's move to a unipennate. Uni tells us one. And in a unipennate muscle, what happens is that all the fibers are connected to one on one side of the connective tissue, unipennate. And often you see unipennate is that this would be the connective tissue strip, and all the fibers would be coming in on one side. So that's a very sort of idealized view that I'm drawing here, but that would be unipennate versus what we're going to see later, a bipennate would be on both sides versus the unipennate, which would just be on the one side. And often many little muscles associated with the hand and hand movement fall into this category. The next one, let's go to a very large muscle, and this is the pectoralis major. And of course, pectoralis major is one of it is the biggest chest muscle here. We have the major, we have the minor, which would lie deep to this, but we're looking at the pectoralis major. And if you have a look, you can see that the fascicles are all coming in like this. They're coming into one spot, and they're all converging on one area. So that is a convergence. A convergent type of style. And let's go to one of the most unique ones, which would be the circular. Now, there's two actually up in the face. There is one that goes around the mouth, and this is the orbicularis oris. Oris for an orator, someone who speaks. And there's another one you can actually see here. It goes around the eyes, and that's orbicularis oculi. So that is a type of circular, because all the fascicles are going around in a circle, as we can see here. And then let's go to the last major form, which is the multipennate. And of course, the shoulder, one of the big muscles of the shoulder up here, would be the deltoid. Now, if you look at the deltoid, it's multipennate because if we look carefully, we can see that there's a division that occurs within the deltoid. There's some connective tissue division. So I have sort of an anterior aspect to the deltoid, a posterior, and a in-between aspect, or the lateral aspect here. And each one of these, the direction of the fascicles is running and attaching onto the connective tissue. So I have multipennate, that down here I have fascicles coming from here, another completely different group of fascicles here, and another completely different group of fascicles here. Now, if you're wondering what's different than here in convergence, is in convergence, this is just one big uninterrupted group of fascicles that are coming down, whereas here we have some division into different compartments within the muscle, and it's attaching in such a way that we'll call it the multipennate. So that's just a quick overview of some of the terminology you're going to come across when you're looking at muscle shape and fiber attachment.